I'm Antonio Zavarce, broadcasting live from the annual AMP conference in San Antonio, Texas. Today, we have a luxury guest, a person who is recognized for all the contribution in the evaluation, in the management and prevention of corrosion in the oil and gas industry. Our guest is Mr. Gerald Brown, President of Brown Corrosion. Welcome, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Good morning.
It is an honor to have you here.
It's an honor to be here.
Okay, Mr. Brown, I have a few questions for you.
Surely.
Okay? The first question that I would like to make you is tell us a little bit about yourself and how you get involved in this world of evaluation and prevention of the corrosion industry.
Right. Well, I'm a born Canadian, and after high school, I came to the United States and went to UCLA, mechanical engineering, and being from a relatively poor family, I had to work my way through university. And I worked for a company involved in wellheads and drilling business. And with control valves to control the flow of oil and gas and water to the surface, there's three problems: corrosion, erosion, and cavitation. So I took an interest in that and then eventually got involved with NACE, and I think this is my 50th year as a AMP member, was NACE before, and got involved with that. And when I graduated from university, about 2 weeks later, we were living in Australia for the startup of an offshore platform by Esso. Australia. So we lived there for 2 years, and then we shifted to Singapore. We were there for 5 years. We came back to the States. We had children, 2 daughters, and then we went back overseas, and I was living in Greece for a few years, and we were doing the well casing corrosion study for Saudi Aramco, and that was about a 5-year project with about 20 engineers, and got involved in that. And then I came back to the States again and basically said, you know, we're back in the States, so we're going to just work Gulf of Mexico. And our first job was in Venezuela.
No kidding.
For Lagoven.
Oh,
yes.
For Lagoven.
And it was
What year?
That would have been about 1992.
Okay.
93. And then in the early 90s, we started our own business, and we've been doing it ever since. And as much as we said we were going to be not so much foreign work, even to this day, about 50% of our work is non-American. We do a lot of work in Nigeria, Angola, Malaysia, Brunei. Now the pandemic has kind of left us a little uncertain of what's going to happen because of the travel restrictions.
I know.
But we're still doing it. And we specialize primarily in internal corrosion, but also in external corrosion.
What assets?
I'm sorry?
In what assets? What equipments? Pipelines?
Right. Well, one of the things with the flow of products through pipelines, liquids or gases, or solids in slurry lines, like coal, quite often is pulverized and moved through pipelines. You have to worry about corrosion. And the owners of these assets don't want to shut down the flow. So we develop tools to be able to go into a pipe and back out of a pipe to get corrosion coupons, corrosion probes, and samples without shutting down the pipeline.
I see.
So we develop these tools, and they're to NACE MRO 175 for sour gas service, because we do a lot of work in H2S environments. And we develop these tools, and we still manufacture them, and they're used all over the world.
Perfect. Excellent, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, tell me, let's speak about stories, success stories, victory stories. What type or what kind of stories of success can you name? I know that you have a lot, but one that really marked in your professional life.
Right, well, I think there's been a lot of them, as you said, so it's very difficult to pick one, but I'll pick a typical one. We worked with a company, and I won't mention their name, and they were using their largest capital expenditure was manpower. The second one was chemicals used in the flow of oil and gas.
Okay.
Inhibitors, methanol for hydrates, different things like that. Biocides for bacteria, which causes corrosion.
Okay.
And so we went in and we installed initially corrosion coupons, and we determined that the inhibitor and the chemical cocktail that was being used worked fine, but it was too much going in. So we saved the company about $500,000 a year by being able to adjust the chemicals so you got enough for coverage of the inside of the pipe, but not too much that it was just flowing down the pipeline and going into a refinery someplace.
See. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Mr. Brown, I have another question. Within what corresponds to the wide universe on corrosion? Beyond what are the standards and codes? What could be the benefit of core knowledge and on how to prevent corrosion?
Right, right. Well, there's 7 or 8 methods of corrosion control. Coatings is one, proper design, material selection, use of inhibitors, cathodic protection for the outside of the pipe. Because with all pipes, there's the outside, which is one issue, and the inside, which is a totally different one.
Yes.
So one has to look at all these different methods. And we look at the assets around the world, from Latin America to Russia to China to every place in Europe, that a lot of times people can see the outside of a pipe or a vessel or a tank, so they can determine a method of corrosion control, but quite often on the inside they can't. So it's a little different situation. And then with all assets, there's existing assets that are there, and quite often some pipelines, like just recently in the United States, they dug up a pipeline in Ohio that was manufactured from wood, and it was from the 1800s, and it was still there and they hadn't leaked.
No kidding.
No kidding. So you have to look at the assets that are already there and then new assets being built. So if there are new assets being built, you can pick the proper materials. But if it's assets that are already there, sometimes with acquisitions and mergers and changes with governments and companies, we really don't know what the material is.
Yes.
And you can't really take a chunk of it and cut it out to find out. So, you know, it's very difficult to do all these things. But we can do them. They can be done. And corrosion control is very important. And in the early 70s, there were 2 things that happened. One was the world's awareness of pollution. So all of a sudden, to be able to contain these products within a pipe or a vessel or a tank became more important. Previous to that, previous to the early 70s, if you had a spill, just put dirt on top of it and move on. After that, we couldn't do that. And then the other thing was the high cost of pipe and vessels and tanks. So with all these things happening in the early 70s, the awareness of proper corrosion control became a very important thing. Now, organizations like API, American Petroleum Institute, SP, Society of Petroleum Engineers, and NACE, which was originally the National Association of Corrosion Engineers, put out specifications for material and a methodology for testing, for checking things. And then along with that came company, federal, state, city, county, all kinds of regulations saying you must have corrosion control. It's not a matter of a company wanting to do it or not wanting to do it. You have to do it.
Exactly.
Here in the United States, the Department of Transportation, DOT, has strict regulations. And basically they say if anything may be corrosive, you must monitor it and take steps to stop it.
Exactly. Excellent, excellent. Mr. Brown, today you are here at the conference.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any technology that you want to speak to us, to the Inspenet community?
Yes, definitely. It's kind of interesting because some things have come full circle, you might say. And what we're seeing now with the development of computers over the last 40 years, let's say. Things can be automated and you can gather more data. But at the same time, sometimes too much data becomes a problem because people have to digest that data and understand what it means. So we kind of take two aspects. One is a simple aspect of a metal specimen that goes into a pipe. You leave it for a specific period of time, and then you can measure the amount of metal loss over that period of time and come up with mils per year, which is what we use in the Americas, and in Europe, millimeters per year, and we can determine the rate of corrosion. Now, on the other end of the scale, there's automated systems with probes, and we often have, like for instance, in the Gulf of Mexico, there might be a platform producing oil and gas, and people sit in Houston or any other city in the world, London, Tokyo, and they can actually sit at their computer and see what's going on in that location. So there's two areas of technology, the high tech and you might say the low tech. And both are important, both must be used. It's not a matter of wanting to do it. But what we do find, having said this in a very positive way, a lot of companies don't always follow the regulations because you got company regulations and all the governmental regulations and the industry regulations, and sometimes they don't go together. They overpass. So our job is to look at these and do the best job possible for the users to make sure that we are monitoring for corrosion and preventing corrosion in the most economical and accurate way possible. And that's what we're doing now.
Excellent, excellent, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, your company, you founded what year?
We founded in 1994. I think that makes us 28 years old, something like that. And when we started it, I had worked for 2 or 3 different companies, and I've never been a businessman. I'm an engineer, and I like the engineering side of it. But I said, I've worked for the 4 or 5 companies that do this, and I'm running out of options, so maybe I need to start a company. Well, my daughter had graduated from university in Michigan, Jane.
Chemical, mechanical?
No, she didn't have a technical degree. She had a liberal arts degree.
Oh, wow.
But I'll have to tell you, one time at a meeting similar to this, somebody said to her, Jane, how long have you been in corrosion? And somebody from the audience
All
said,
my life.
She was born in corrosion. And she was, because as a little baby, I was on the board of directors of NACE at that time. So she got to meet the president, the vice president, all the certain people involved in the industry. Right. So we started the business, but I called her and I said, I've never wanted to do it, but I think we're going to have to start a business. And she said, well, Dad, she said, I'm up in New Hampshire. If you start a business, how would you like a partner? And we've worked together for 28 years.
Excellent, excellent.
So, and I never believed that would happen, but it's a really good relationship. And at work, she calls me Jerry. At home, she calls me Dad or Father.
Excellent.
So we have a good relationship.
Nice, nice. Mr. Brown, the only thing that I can say, thank you very much for this time.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Again, it's an honor to have you here and a pleasure to meet today.
Very good. Thank you very much.
I hope next
enjoyed
time, in the next conference, we can have another interview.
We'll do it again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.